Okay, let's call the meeting to order with the roll call. Oh wait, let's just call the meeting to order and then do the pledge of allegiance, sorry. I got ahead of myself. All right, meeting's called to order at 8 minutes after 10. And we'll do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Michael.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Lori here.
All right, approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm sorry, did everybody look at it?
I actually have only looked at an incredibly small percentage of it. I was not.
Look quick.
Oh, well, that was it.
It's right here.
Well, I'm actually referring to the information, the large book.
We're talking about the
I'm only
agenda.
asking
agenda.
for
Oh, the
approval to
agenda,
approve
okay,
the
okay.
agenda.
Yes, all right, fine, I'll go along with that, yes.
Are you seconding?
Yes, all right.
Motion to approve the minutes of the special
We
meeting.
gotta vote on that
Oh.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All opposed? Motion carries. I guess they're circling my stuff here. Otherwise I get like, woo, too much coffee. Okay. Approved minutes of special meeting on December 27th, 2012.
I move we approve.
Second. All those in favor of approving minutes for a special meeting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Open session. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time.
Well, yeah, my name is Fred Roberts, and I'm here to make a point about the possible estate or park down at Roberts Landing being purchased by the township, and I'm against it, and a number of my neighbors are, for various reasons: security, cost, the fact that there's speeding through there. I've talked to the state police. We have no police. We have no police, township police. When we have a problem, we have to call the state police. They are never down there. And when I've talked to the sheriff twice about the speeding through there, a man was killed just a couple doors north of this property that you wish to purchase. He lay there in the road for a couple hours before anybody could get down. But there's no police protection. What do we do for security? The cost of security. The speeding cars, as I say, I've talked to the sheriff a couple of times. They try to be cooperative. They don't come down. They are elsewhere. They say, well, we'll send a car down to look at things, check things out. They never do. If you call them an emergency, sometimes, but so the sheriff is a long way away, state police, a long way away. They are not available. We have no township police. I think we're the only township in the region that doesn't either have their own police or hire the sheriff's department. We're worried about what happens at night, the security, kids, are they going to be locked? And an interesting point is just a few doors south is this great state park. We think the money could be used someplace else. You have this huge state park. You have boat ramps in Marine City, or Trumbull, Algonac, if you're looking at boating situations. So this is my point. My neighbors don't like it, are against it. I think one, Ellen Jones, just talked to her in Florida, and she's going to contact you. Of course, she's probably talked to you before. Somebody mentioned there's a conflict of interest involved, that somebody on the board owns property adjacent to the park. Is that conflict of interest? I don't know. That's what I
Nobody
heard.
on the board owns
Nobody owns
property.
it.
Okay,
That's a past board person.
okay. Are these on commission or anything like that?
What's that?
Is he
Are
on
they,
commission?
okay.
No.
That property is not even in the grant, and you can look
Okay,
at it
the-
if you want, Mr.
The
Robert.
people that own
I'll
the
let you
adjacent
finish
to
first.
the property there are, you've met them, Italian name, I don't know.
I forget his name.
Are we
Maybe
talking
not-
about
not- maybe
Street?
not you
In the
something.
White House,
Yeah,
next door, the guy
Yeah.
that takes care of it, he's been
Right.
mowing it.
See him?
Yeah.
I don't know.
well, anyway, I know who it is, I forgot his name. But these are my concerns, the
Okay.
security, the cost of security, the fact that the inability to protect it at night. When you have government money and taking money like this, it's open to anybody could come. You come from Detroit, you come from Chicago, sit down there. Who's gonna watch it? Who's gonna protect it? And with a state park, a few doors south, what are you doing with these thousands of dollars? I can't believe it. You'd best go to charity, some other project. You have a park out here, which I hear and see is seldom used. How many people are in the township? 3,000 or 4,000? It just flips me when I see you moving towards securing this piece of property from Sam British. So that's my point. That's my opinion.
I'm Terry Watt. I live in the first property south of that piece of land. I'm
Mr.
concerned.
I'm sorry, how do you spell your last name?
W-A-T-T.
Okay, thank you.
There have been 2 murders on that property in the past.
2 murders?
2
How long
murders.
ago?
One of them has been within 12 years, and I don't know when the other one was.
Was that when the bar was
That
still
was
there?
obviously when the bar was
Okay.
there. But again, you're gonna have unsupervised people there. You got a world-class park, 300 yards below, with park rangers and people watching that, and the Clay Township Police. So I just don't think it's a safe situation, or a situation that, right now we need to be spending money on anything like that. Who's gonna come and clean up? And there's, kids and drugs are gonna eventually come and go there, so. I don't see the purpose of it or the safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
With regards to the grant, when I was looking through the Parks and Rec folder, you could call it, I found this grant fund acquisition project. And there were several things that needed to be filled out, and it was due, the agreement was due back on November 21st. Well, now this is December, whatever date, and I was like, why, was this sent back? Did they not do this? What? So I started calling I called our director of Parks and Rec, Mark Rochard. I called Jay DeBoyer, who's our county clerk. I called Bob Wiley, who sits on our St. Clair County Park and Rec Executive Board. I called an independent grant reader who works for the FBI in this class. She has 35 years experience, who Stephen Sack had recommended. He's a former Cottrellville supervisor. And also John Johnson, who helped me to get into this, had recommended her as well. I also spoke with a person outside, another supervisor outside the community. I spoke with a different engineering consultant, probably about 15 different people that I went and met and talked to about this grant. First of all, everybody stated that with this grant, we're getting it from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, we're receiving $337,000 for the grant. We are also receiving $100,000 from the county. So we're getting $437 total, which will not only pay for all of the property, but it also pays for any assessing fees, any back tax, anything. So basically, the township in itself has not paid. Once we get the money from the grants and that, the township will not pay $1 for any of this property. Now, what's the reason why we have to follow through with this resolution is because they didn't do it. And I figured with this being so much the former boards, big project and whoa-ho, that's what they're promoting, it made me very leery. Why did they have this? It's stamped August 27th.
Sure.
Why did they not return it in 3 months? Is something wrong? Is somebody gaining something? What? Did something fall through? So I was very leery about even sending it in. And there's a lot of work that I have to do to send this in. Do I want to go through all this if it's not going to benefit our community? And that's why I went and spoke to all of these people. I spoke to the St. Clair County Health Department. I spoke to BPAC. I spoke to the Road Commission. I've gone, spent a lot of time in looking into this. Because when I was out there campaigning, I was against the park on the belief that
Yes,
somebody was
yes.
going to financially gain from it, and we didn't want that. We didn't believe in that. Also, the security issue, which I know we talked about that, and why have a park next to a park. Well, after talking with all these different people, I started to be more open-minded once I found out that one person's family wasn't going to gain from tearing down those cabins, because I found out we could get a grant for that where it won't cost the township money. Another person isn't going to gain by buying their property, because their property doesn't even connect. You have the property that we're going to acquire, then you have a house, then that person's property. It makes no sense to buy that person's property. Plus, that property, we don't have the money. It's not in the grant. The whole point is that this grant, the township's not paying anything. I went and it's still in the makings as to how much the liability insurance is. Speaking with Jay DeBoyer, who designed the Clay Township Park, very minimal. We get at least $15,000 a year from our millage, from the Parks and Rec, from the county. Easy to maintain both parks. I talked to Mark B. about the money that we acquired this year for the park. I can blacktop this park, the walk path, which is hideous, which we don't like. Look into family adopting the park. Look, there's several different ways that we can make sure that both the parks are maintained. Not only when we acquired this park, but BPAC is coming in, the DEQ, our state engineering has offered us another grant to pull all of that stuff out of there and make it a total natural water. The shoreline in that. They're gonna bring in shrubbery. This is a grant that we don't have to match, we don't have to do anything with. And it's gonna be open to the community, the meeting where they're gonna show different designs.
Are you going to have just passes for the community only?
This is that's just the waterfront. We're not even doing nothing to, of course, we wanna tear down the cabins and get rid of all that nastiness with
That's
the
bad news
grant.
for years. Yeah.
But that's not even, doing anything. We don't know. That's all a process in the making right now. If you have it right now as it stands, people can go on there. It's for sale. People can go on there, fish. They can do whatever they want with it. But if the township acquires it, then it's a little more where they're accountable to what they're doing on that property. I'm talking to MDOT and Mr. Lamont over at the St. Clair County Road Commission about signs that we can make, different postages, ways we can post on the road. If we can have a dot thing for crossing, as far as the safety issue goes, on a daily basis, how many people cross that street at Algonac? How many people are hit? When you look at the ratio, how many people are crossing that street?
Well, my father was, and he lived at his.
Right, but if you have 100
All
people
of this
week
is
crossing the street, that's what I'm saying. As far as the financial cost, it hasn't cost the township anything. Crime rate, and that we can look into that. We have to look at the ratio of how many people are crossing the street to how many people have been hurt. The conflict of interest, a board member doesn't own the property. This is just things that I have to look into, because I have to look at, we're looking at it all the way around.
Obviously, excuse me, you've done your homework, which is very good. But that doesn't cover the fact that law enforcement, and they can talk. I know this Mark Rashure, I have problems with him. He's up there. I know him. And if you're talking about the county or the state backing you up and being there, as far as the speeding is concerned, as far as the people coming from the outside, the drugs, the speeding through there, I call the cops a lot of times. The state, the sheriff, they don't show up. They're not stopping that. People are going across the street at your life. This is all. It's nice to say you're going to get support from these people in Port Huron, the county, or the state, or so on, they're not there. They don't live there. They're telling you a lot of things that they may have the statistics, but it's a not realistic situation.
But when
to
I
be
have
done.
other people that don't live right where you live, other members of the community that are for the park, and I say, well, the houses that live right there are telling me this, they wanna see the stats. They wanna see how many speeding tickets were issued in that area, how many accidents were issued in that area.
They don't, they're going 30,
Mr.
40
Roberts,
miles
that's
an
what I'm
hour
saying,
over.
is that I have to,
It's that one, and they're never there to support it.
All right.
Why don't we have a township officer? Why don't we hire a township, the sheriff to protect us? It's all this, it sounds good, but there's no protection down there, they never come down there. If you sit there and see they're 30, 40 miles an hour, they're crossing the double line in front of my house.
right, well then that's a whole
And
different
it's
issue.
gonna take a
the
major,
protection that you're getting
you know,
in the park.
I want to bring this back to order because we're beyond the scope of our agenda. The agenda is regarding the grant. Do we approve to sign the resolution for this grant? You guys are talking about the purchase of the property. We haven't even decided if we're going to purchase the property. Right now, what's at issue is, do we sign for the grant? Do we sign the resolution to approve the grant? My only question would be, if we decide not to purchase the property, can we give the grant back if we sign the resolution?
This is saying that
today?
we're accepting this, that we're accepting the
accepting
money
the
to
money,
pay for the
but-
property.
And another thing that we need to look at, the people voted on the purchase of this property. It was on a ballot and it was approved by the people in the vote. What ramifications do we have if we don't go ahead and purchase this property? The people already voted on it at a general election. They said buy it. How bound are we by that? Can we get out of it? What kind of ramifications does that have if we don't purchase it? If we do have to purchase it because they voted it in, we need the grant. But it's already been to vote. People said buy it. I don't know what, I'd have to get with an attorney and see if, if there's some way to get out of it if we decide not to buy it. But our hands are kind of tied
You
at
have this
this
beautiful
point.
state park down there, and you're putting another park there, and nobody uses this.
Mr.
How many
Robert,
people
but
use
this
this
is
park for
something
3,000
before,
people?
this is something before us, so our whole deal is
Ridiculous.
we have Cottrellville pay $400,000 for it, or do we accept the grant and make sure, and then do the best we can to make sure that it's maintained?
We're picking
so-
up the pieces from the prior
Right.
board.
These cottages,
This
are there.
isn't-
Is anybody in there, or are they?
No.
I mean, that's
Oh,
even-
they're
that's
like
even more
the
dangerous to
interject
me.
one thing here, because I feel that what Terry and Fred and Jacqueline Byer, for the record, are concerned with liability here too. Now, let's say you have a lot of problems there, and you have a homeowner, and they start seeing things stolen. They start you have home invasion, and it's in direct correlation to this park. Or let's just say you have, how much this liability, which you mentioned, Kelly.
It's,
Wait, well, let me
Go ahead.
just, may I? What happens when you start getting lawsuits from people saying, we didn't consider this liability? That's just one consideration that the township definitely
well, they're gonna have to
should.
prove that these people were parking at.
Again, the purpose
Yeah,
of
let's
this
just stick
meeting
to
and
the
the agenda
agenda.
is, with regard to the signing of this resolution, it's not on whether or not we're purchasing it at this point in
It's to
time.
accept.
Oh, we
It
just want to
has to
call
do
it.
with whether or not we have to stick to what's on the agenda because of the rules of the Open Meetings Act.
Sorry.
And I apologize, but we're not, at this point, we're not saying, and this board has never voted on whether or not we're purchasing it. We have a deadline with regard to this grant.
Paying for it.
If we
How much
have
we
to
pay for it.
purchase it because of what's happened with the past board, we don't want to foot the bill of $400,000. That's the purpose of this grant. So we need to cover all our bases. We're not saying, because we haven't voted yet on whether or not we're purchasing this property, but
No, it doesn't matter, we have to purchase property, the grant is either we pay for it out of Cottrellville Township's monies, or we pay for it with the grant. That's it.
what
It
I'm
was already
saying
voted
is,
on.
do we have to
Purchase.
purchase it because of what happened with the past board? Not because of this
No.
grant, because if I'm signing this, and I don't even know if I have the legal responsibility to buy it, because this board has not voted on whether or not we should purchase it. This board came into a situation where that went to the vote of the people. The people said purchase it. Are we bound by that? Was the community misrepresented by what was on the ballot? I don't know. But all I know is that because of a vote, the people in the community said purchase it.
How was it worded on the ballot, do you know?
I don't know, I didn't pull the ballot. So, that comes down to the grant. If we sign it now but find out that we don't have to purchase it, can we back out of the grant? That's my one question.
One thing that I thought I should mention is I did some homework too. I talked with Mr. Brochu yesterday, and I talked to the DNR yesterday. And I also talked to some previous supervisors in other townships and city commissioners. And it definitely is 100% incorrect to go by the presumption that if you give a grant back, then you are never going to be able to attain another grant or have it be more difficult to get a grant in the future. That's just wrong. I was told it's very common to get grants back because purchases are not made.
Well, with that being said, if we can give the grant back, this is just whether or not we're going to accept it. I'm going to move that we at least sign this and proceed forward. We can always give it back, or we can attempt it, but we need to at least keep up with the deadline. And now today's meeting is all about.
Right.
Just with the deadline.
And I'm sure that they have no problem taking their money back.
No, nobody
I mean,
does.
somebody else will take it, I guarantee it, you know.
Say one more thing. The trail, which you divided my property one time, that is at the rear of this property, the trail, the biking trail, walking trail, runs from Roberts Road into Algonac through the state park. There's been quite a bit of stealing off that trail with property, state park, people, trailers, and you can talk to the manager. And so there's another thing, what you have this bike trail running in the back, which people can go in and out of it. They steal things out of the state park on our property and then take off to Algonac or take off to the boat. You can talk to the state park manager. That's fairly
And that
common.
happens now
That's fairly
today?
common.
Kids
That
come
happens
and-
now
the
today?
kids come and steal beer, steal bikes, drive it down the end of the trail, dump the bike, and they have the beer.
And
This is what it's going to
being
happen.
devil's advocate, I would assume that's gonna happen no matter what, whether we purchase it or not.
I mean, at least these abandoned
Well,
buildings
yeah.
will be off of there.
Yeah, the
I mean,
abandoned
Being
buildings will
public
be
property,
gone.
it's
To me,
open.
that seems more dangerous.
Okay, so moving forward,
We need a second.
Well, can I have a discussion?
Sure.
Okay, the one thing is, because it still sounds like there's a bit of confusion based on the limited amount that I did read. On page 1 and 2 of the document I was given yesterday, it talks about how the first grant is for $337,700, and that represents 75%, leaving $113,000 for Cottrellville Township to come up with. And then St. Clair County will provide $100,000. However, that actually does leave some money for Cottrellville Township to come up with.
we received a millage for $16,000, not including what else is in our Parks and Rec, which would be used to finish that.
Right, it does say though in the paperwork that it expects to be in the $500,000 range, which means.
That's not what it was assessed at.
I'm just pointing out what the paperwork says.
All right, well, here, I guess the question then becomes, do we not sign the resolution
Right, we need to
and
put it
lose
to
the
a vote.
$400,000, but find out that by the vote of the people, we have to now purchase it? My question is, where do we come up with $400,000? Or do we sign the resolution and find out that we don't have to purchase it and we can back out of the resolution? Or do we, I mean, I'm giving you all the bases. Or do we not sign it? Well, I already said that one. Or do we sign it and then we're stuck?
Right, and
So, but does anyone have that answer? No. Do we have a deadline? Yes. So that's why we have the special meeting today.
the woman who actually handles our region from the DNR won't be in until Wednesday. Her name's Tamara, and I can't remember her last name. So I spoke with someone from a different region yesterday, and I was told that because this is not in the application stages, this is in the grant stages that have already been approved. They understand that a new board is here, and they're very leeway. I actually heard that from both the DNR and Mr. Brochu. So, I mean, if we need to table this in order to study and make sure our questions are answered, that's not going to affect whether the grant has been approved.
Well, I think I'll ask Kelly that question then, because Kelly has been in contact with the people who are writing this grant.
They told me to
and they
get
are
it
the
in
ones.
as soon as possible.
That's what I was told too. Right, it's just, it's not going to,
But we're not having another special meeting. We
No,
do
we're
not
not.
have any more
So
special
we're-
meetings.
I move that we vote to either
Ken
accept the
already moved if you
resolution.
want to.
Oh, I'll second it.
This is just for the grant, just
Just
the
to sign
deadline
the
of getting
resolution.
the resolution in there for the grant.
So we
This doesn't
can-
mean that,
I mean, within the next few days, we can do more research, and then if we need to, then call another special meeting.
No, we can put it on the board meeting. The board meeting's the 9th.
To not submit the paperwork.
I'm submitting, the reason why I called this was to submit this today, and that's what we were all aware of. And
Right,
that's why we called this special meeting. So this special meeting was either to accept the resolution or not. Ken moved to accept the resolution. I moved
You
to
seconded
second
it.
it, so now we put it to the
oh,
vote.
what board meeting is
The night.
board meeting tonight,
On the
on the 9th.
9th.
Oh, I thought you said tonight.
Okay, I'm not the only one who hears things.
Yeah, because I mean, I like.
Okay, so let's put it to a vote. All in favor of accepting the
It's a
resolution?
resolution, we need to do a roll call vote.
Right.
Roll call vote.
All right, Michael,
I'd like it officially noted in the minutes, no, because I think it needs to be tabled to do research.
all right, and Ken,
I'm for it.
Kelly,
For it.
Sandy,
Yes.
Lori, yes.
Motion to accept the resolution and get the paperwork sent in is carried. Motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 10:35 a.m.
Oh, public comments on any
Oh, I'm
agenda
sorry.
item, sorry. I gotta do my circles.
Sure. So then you're going to be discussing this to see?
Right.
Yeah, you're going to go.
This resolution was just to send in to say, okay, we'll take the grant money. Now we're all gonna do our homework on the stuff that you signed.
Okay, good.
And
That's
get
good.
all that together and
Right.
talk to the sheriff's department about your concerns and talk to everything, because then we can always give it back. But this was just so that Cottrellville wouldn't be responsible paying for it if we had to pay for it.
Okay,
At least we have the money to pay for it if we're stuck with it. It's
This had to be signed before the end of the year and sent in. That's the only reason, if we weren't gonna get the state money, or
okay.
money from the state for it. It still doesn't mean that the park is a 100% go or anything like
Right,
that. This
no,
is just to
it's
get the
just to cover
paperwork filed
Cottrellville to
properly.
make sure we weren't responsible.
Well, I'm glad it came up, and we came up and gave our point of view, because we've lived there a long time.
And I know
You know,
your point of view, Mr. Roberts,
Yeah.
and we've discussed it, and that's why when I looked at this, you have no idea how hard it was for me to sit there and go around.
Because you came in campaigning against it, so that's why.
Exactly, and why and then I was like, great, because now what do I do? Exactly, it put me in a situation,
Sure.
that's why I went and
Okay.
spent so much time and effort talking to so many different people,
Okay.
because of that, because we know. And that's, but I didn't want Cottrellville to get stuck with.
I understand.
Well, one of the good things for this, even if the park went through, and I'm not really for the park per se 100%, but it does still preserve the heritage of Roberts Landing. Without the park or something else there,
Well, and
it's gonna fade away and just be
being in
part of
San
the
Roberts, paid the state park, or county park, or township park.
Well-
He founded it, so there you go.
Well,
Well,
the
and
statute.
even, oh, wait, and
Well, the
here's, wait,
statute.
can I adjourn this?
Oh, I wanted to respond to Mr. Roberts. You had mentioned the conflict of interest. I actually discovered there's actually 2 potential conflicts of interest.
Michael, this is just an agenda item for the public, not for us to talk, so can we adjourn it and then talk?
Then you can talk to him afterwards.
Is this what just for
This
public,
is
this is for
for
public?
the agenda
not-
items.
I move to
It's-
adjourn.
I second. Okay, now you can talk.
Sorry,
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
well-
Well, we gotta vote on adjourning. You
All
gotta
in
remember to
favor?
vote after you get a
I keep
second.
forgetting.
Well, I'm gonna vote nay, and I want to put it on the minutes, because I wasn't done answering something.
But it's for public comments, not board.
I'm just for responding to Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Roberts speaks to the chairperson speaks to Mr. Roberts. That's how it's done. You can talk to Kelly, but
All right, I'd like to probably mention to Kelly that there's the 2 potential conflicts. There's the previous board member, and then the current building inspector,
How is the previous board member a conflict?
because he owns a nearby property.
What's
What
he
does
got,
it
what,
have to do with that?
he's not on the board
property?
anymore.
He's
How can
not-
That piece of property is going to change in value if a park is put in, and so is a nearby property owned by.
So are all the properties
So we're
around
just
there,
gonna
not
be,
just
I'm sorry, we're gonna be spiteful for anybody that we don't like and say, I don't want you to gain anything, therefore I'm not gonna purchase this piece of property that I have to purchase because the people voted it in.
Well, it actually
Is that what you're
says,
saying?
it actually says on page 2 of the document that when a third party, when that type of situation,
There is
That
not a third
situation
party.
doesn't exist.
it looks to me like it could potentially need to be inspected by their,
That on November 20th at noon, that position, that situation no longer existed.
what situation?
The one you're trying to bring up,
How did that?
the conflict of
Oh, you're
interest.
talking about because he,
He's no longer a board member, he's no longer on any commission or committee. So how is that a conflict of interest for this board?
well, because at the time that was put into effect,
We can't go backward in time, we can't change what is in the works now. That should have been their concern.
I think it was.
How can we change it, Michael?
I'm just pointing out the information that I am representing for the.
Which is not germane to the topic at hand. It's got nothing to do with what we're doing today.
Well, it was actually something Mr. Roberts brought up, so I was just responding.
I'm just saying, it's not germane to what we're doing today. What we're doing today is, we're trying to get this resolution done so we can move forward and leave everything behind and try and fix what we need to fix. Not yet, we haven't voted yet.
Yeah,
I don't mean to, I'm just being,
No, that's okay.
I'm
You're
sorry.
trying to.
Well-
I'm sorry, Michael.
No,
Okay.
that's okay.
I'm adjourned. Are you adjourned?
Are we all in favor to
Aye.
adjourn the meeting? Aye, aye, aye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I would think about it too.